Oh, here we go, boys. Hanabi. Caught it. Caught in 4K, as one could say. Look at that. I was waiting for that. Couldn't see it earlier because of the fog. But in front of these fireworks, today I'd like to talk about another thing that's near and dear to me heart. And that's this concept that we as human beings are basically just taxable creatures as far as the government is concerned. We are cattle that live on ranges, N-word cattle you could almost say, live on tax ranges that the government farms for basically. You exist as an entity, as the government, as a number, which is the total amount of tax gross they're going to be able to milk out of you either per year or over the course of your lifetime. That's what you are to the government. And when you understand government policy, it starts to make sense when you examine things that way. Because if you're at the top of the violence pyramid, if you're part of the United States government and you have the ability to, wield violence against someone, the ability to, remove a father from his family, and then force him to pay for, the existence of that family against his will, and then throw him in jail for no real reason, and then say that he still has to pay while being in jail, and then jail him because he can't pay, and throw him into an endless cycle of prison. That's really when you start to see people as just numbers. And so our government, of course, sees us as the total amount of dollars we're going to contribute to the system. Let that sink in for a second, because it's very important that we understand that we are tax cattle, and that every cent we give to the government, they're going to use to try and harm us back. Because it makes perfect sense, right? White people in general, the major tax providers, because almost all of the taxes in every nation come from white people, either starting businesses, contributing to society, building up society, what have you. No matter where you look, in almost every society, it's going to be white people that are going to be the majority, except for like Asia and some very specific outliers. But at least here in Judeo-Christian worlds, it's the white people that are going to pay for virtually everything. And now you might say to me, well, Sneed, that's a little racist of a viewpoint. It's a little cringe of a view, right? It is. I'll accept that. But is it wrong, is what I have to ask you as well, if you're going to cite that, if you're going to talk about something like that. I don't think it is. And so what are some of the consequences when we see ourselves as, tax cattle on this range? The government seeks to, feed us with some sort of grain. What is that grain? That grain is women. That grain is marriage. That grain is a system. Marriage is a contract between you and the government that says you're going to pay for this woman's life, you're going to pay into the system for the entirety of your life, or else the government is going to use violence against you. And also the government's going to use violence against you at the behest of that woman for basically anything she desires, right? That's what no-fault divorce is. No-fault divorce is the belief that women get to use violence against men or the government without any real compensation or reason why. Because let's be clear here, 95% of alimony payments, 95% of child support is from men to women. The vast majority of the cases, that's what's going to happen. And so if we are just these floating tax numbers, baited along on hooks by gaping, rotting wounds, sip, sip, sip. If we are just these numbers baited along by floating hooks, by these rotting wounds that are going to, at least attempt to continue our genetic line, although in some places we're not even legally allowed to check or protest if it's not our genetic line. At some places in this country, you'll be forced to take care of a child that isn't even yours, isn't even your genetic line, and you'll be fiscally responsible for that child just because, the government will say someone is going to pay for that child, and it's not going to be me, Daddy Government. I am just here to use force against you. I am here to take, I am not here to give, which is the reality of what the government is in modern day. And so what's the solution to this system, right? Anyone can see that, at least if you're the cow, you're the white man who provides all the tax resources for all the other minorities, women, children, everything. Everything's on your back to work for society to make a society in which all of these other people can prosper while you're at the mercy of them, at the mercy of their leisure, right? Because let's be clear here, American culture worships N-words. It worships the gays. It worships, minorities. American culture denigrates white men, pretty much part and parcel. That's the purpose of American culture in this day and age, is to denigrate white men. So what's the solution then? The solution is to stop creating value, stop making taxable income, stop paying for all of this. Just as Gandhi said, you don't have to do anything special to bring this system down as the white man. There's no revolt that's necessary. There's no struggling required. There's no big fight you have to undertake in your life. You need to get to a point in your life where you don't need anyone else, where you can comfortably retire or work under the table or something. I don't advise working under the table. I don't advise breaking the law. I don't advise doing anything illegal, because the government will go after you and treat you especially bad because you are a white man. And we live in a racist society against white men, and it's time to accept that. Then it's time to stop being the tax cows and bring the system down so the next system can come up, and hopefully one that'll treat us better. And if not, well, we tried. Then things were doomed anyways, no matter what you did. But at least then you're heading towards whatever dystopian future we have in store for us without, being willing tax cow participants, right? So what is doing nothing, though? What is the solution? The solution is, there's so many different ways, is to retire long before you, give the government any decent amount of tax money. I think it's impossible to deny the government completely all of your money, right? You're going to have to pay taxes on goods you buy. You're going to have to pay taxes on how you interact, no more than anyone else. But you can reduce the amount of evil you do in the world. I'm not advocating for anything illegal. I don't think you should do anything illegal. What I don't think you should do is, 1, purchase a house. You don't actually own a house in America, by the way. Let's be clear here. You don't pay taxes yearly on something that you own. That's something that you're renting from the government. You don't own your house. You don't own your land. You don't need those things, really. You can get by on life, and it's probably going to be cheaper overall if you simply just find a cheap studio somewhere to rent out and live by yourself. I know that sucks for a lot of people. A lot of people have a dream to own a home. It's like the American dream. At the end of the day, you're going to be paying so much more in taxes. You're going to be contributing to a system that's going to attempt to destroy you. If you get a wife and children, you're going to be forced to slave over to provide them the highest quality of life. Because even if you have enough passive income to live a decent life, they're going to expect more out of you, because that's just natural. Like, if you can already attain this much, well, you should be able to attain more to provide a better life for us, right? Even though they aren't required to do anything back for you, that's still going to be expected of you. And if you do have resources, then, the lecherous leeches are going to go after you either way. So I would recommend, if you're past 25, if you haven't been selected, by someone to mate, you're probably damaged goods. And if you're not damaged goods, you're very broken as a person just because of the rejection. I would suggest it's in your best interest, past the age of 25, when you've hit the male wall, refer to a video I made a long time ago called Men Hit the Wall at 25. If you need further discussion on that. But after you've hit the wall as a man, it's time to, give up, basically, let that system go, and time to figure out a way in which you can live for yourself and attain the greatest happiness you can attain alone. And doing things that are good and doing things that are right is going to be the most important thing for you. And so what are these things you can do? Not contributing to the government, not paying taxes. It is not that difficult if you live a frugal and minimalist lifestyle to be able to retire very, very early in life. Just think about it this way. Total up your monthly expenses, what you pay on rent, $1,000 a month, depending on where you live, for a cheap, ugly studio. It'll do. You don't need anything extravagant, right? Think minimalistically. Like, apply minimalism to everything in your life that you can. Minimalistic diet. You don't really need ingredients that you don't make yourself, things that you don't combine yourself. You're going to have a lot of free time in your life. You might as well learn how to cook. It's going to improve the quality of your life. And combining ingredients to make, minimalistic meals, base ingredients into something you enjoy, whatever it is, doesn't matter. You can just make things, that taste good to you. It's going to improve your health, going to improve the quality of your life, going to make your life better, and it's going to be a lot cheaper than eating out and buying the goy slop. You really don't want to buy the goy slop. And then minimalistic as far as, travel. Do you need a car? If you live in even a bustling metropolis or anywhere like that, you probably don't need a car. Probably bus fare is good enough. If you live in a city, I suggest not. You don't really need to. Remote jobs aren't plenty anymore, but, maybe the economy will turn around. Haha, maybe not. But you need to get in a position to where you don't really need to work anymore, and as soon as humanly possible. It's inevitable that you're going to have to pay into the system a little bit, right? You're going to have to figure out a way to get your initial income, to start your passive income, so that you can get to a point where you don't need anyone else. Also, you don't want to ever take on expenditures, right? Cars are expensive. You're going to need a loan. You're going to be paying car insurance every month on it. Like, most people pay more per month from their car than I spend on rent. You don't need to. Minimalism. Minimalism is the belief that you shouldn't be getting a dopamine hit from buying stuff, that society has conditioned you to getting pleasure from purchasing things instead of the actual value of the things to you. It's the same thing with women and putting pussy on a pedestal, right? If you're putting pussy on a pedestal, if you're, highlighting that as your life or whatever, it's really not. Like, objectively, it's really not. You're just objectively wrong. You're just doing what society tells you to do, and you're, using that validation and replacing that with where your pleasure center should be. The reality of the situation is the average woman probably feels worse than your hand, and certainly worse than a sex toy, period. Just objectively, a sex toy is going to be better than any sort of woman without a deep emotional attachment. And it's unlikely you're ever going to get a deep emotional attachment because you're watching this video. You're not Chad, most of you are not Chad. And if you are Chad, go out and slay it, but you don't have a lot of time, so you better hurry up. And so, get yourself in a position where you have, at maximum like $1,000 a month in expenses. You should be paying no more than $700, $1,000 a month on rent, depending on where you live. Studio apartments are great. Your food bill should be, if you're using base ingredients, $50, $100 a month. You can bulk buy rice and beans and then other things like flour, etc. Make everything by hand. Trust me, it'll taste better and it's much easier on your life. And then it's time to start stockpiling money. And what do you need to do when you stockpile money? Hey, camera. There's a few different ways you can go about turning a stockpile of money into passive income to a point where you'll never need to work again. It's not that difficult. There's, if you want to go the 2%, disclaimer, none of this is financial advice. You'd make your own decisions. Anyone who takes anything I say is a fool, yada yada. This isn't financial advice, but just some ideas. Like, there's a whole bunch of businesses that'll give you flat 2.2%, 2%, whatever, dividends that have been paying out since, the 1890s. They're a great place to start if you want to do investments. Robinhood will pay like 4%, I think it is. 4% a year. And they're insured up to $2 million, I believe. They split your deposit amongst 8 banks. You can read more about Robinhood later. If you trust them, you can go with that route. I'm not sure I would personally, but, that's just 2 very simple, set it and forget it sort of ideas. So 4% a month or 2% a month, that doesn't sound like a lot. It's not. But it also doesn't take that many years. If you're, living for under 10 grand a year, think about it this way, right? At 4% interest, you only need 250 grand to generate 10 grand a year. Now, see, you're going to want to beat inflation. So you probably want 500, $500,000 in Robinhood, and then you could literally live off that interest if you live a very frugal life for the rest of your life. And as you get older, you can have some last hurrahs. When you start hitting 70s, throw it all away, because you're not going to have kids. Why not? Go to the Orient or whatever, dump all of it. Doesn't matter. You do you, right? One last big huzzah at that point. Spend your golden years golden, right? If you want to go about that route, that's something you can do. And if you're going with the dividend route, you'll need about twice as much. You'll need about $1 million. So, if you're working in a tech job, it's not that hard to be making 60, 100K a year, depending on where you live. You're done in 10 years. You're done in 5 years if, you're really frugal and you throw it all in Robinhood. That's it. You have to pay your taxes for 5 years, bite the bullet, suck it up, but then you're not living for this system anymore. You're not a slave to everything anymore. If you start tomorrow, if you cut unnecessary expenditures out of your life, if you work towards this, you can basically do whatever you want with the rest of your life. And that's a pretty good goal. You can still continue to work even after that if you want, if you really enjoy your coworkers or whatever situation you're in. But you have the freedom then at that point to just say F it and do whatever you please. You have the freedom then to tell Uncle Sam that you're not interested in playing games anymore. You're just going to sit. And that's a good enough situation for me. That's my ideal way to fight the system, is just do nothing. If you're someone that doesn't want to go about things in the most proper way, go get on disability. Go, break a leg, quote unquote. Do anything. You've got back pains, whatever. You're a computer programmer and your hand don't work no good no more because you played too many video games, whatever. Make something up. Just stop contributing to the system and, don't contribute it for the rest of your life. If you're someone that doesn't want to contribute positively, you can, of course, just take from the system, too. I'm not against that. I don't think lying is good for you or anyone else, but, at the end of the day, your life, you make the decisions. I would recommend doing things the right way. I'll probably make a video about what the right way is shortly after, but just think about it. Stop being a tax cow. That's all I have to say on the matter.